All right, everyone, it's me again. I am back, and this time with a more serious video. It's going to be an analysis of Kuro Games CEO's interview during Kuro Fest, and it has everything to do with the direction that Kuro Games is going with regards to their game development as well as for the future of games such as PGR and WuWa, which we all know we are excited about, of course, as Kuro supporters. So without any further ado, I'm just gonna dive right into this, and we're gonna hear what Solon Lee, the GOAT, has to say. Okay, so just to make this a little bit short, the first part is a summary of everything that's been said here, right? So we'll be going to the actual interview later on, where Grape, the interviewer, gets has some questions for Solon Lee, right? So let's get into that. Okay, interview from my conversation with Solon Lee. Here we go. So let's start with this question: why did you decide to host such a high spec fest this year? Solon Lee proceeds to reply: last year's PGR Tea Party left me deeply moved. I felt we needed to give players an even better offline experience. On impulse, I got on stage and told them I'd bring them the best experience possible. But what does best mean? We first had to lock in a better offline event on the schedule. By then, WuWa had already launched, so we decided to combine both games into one grand fest. One of Kuro's biggest goals for this year. After more than a year of preparation, it's finally here. It might still have flaws, but I believe everyone, especially players, can feel the progress we've made. That is true, right? So we'll get more in depth after this question. Why has Kuro been investing so much in offline events in recent years? Solon Lee then says we have a shared understanding. Offline events are essentially an extension of the game content. Very well said. They make the games tangible in real world and will keep doing this, aiming to give players a rich crossover between online and offline, not just a formulaic update or formulaic updates. Next year, we'll hold a large-scale offline event again, but the format will depend on the fest review. I'm sure there will be something fresh. And this is actually a good thing. It's a break from your online experience and allowing yourself time to recover from whatever burnout you've had in the game by interacting with people boots on the ground, right? It's a good thing that they do this. And I believe this is the first Kuro Fest that they've had. Somebody could correct me on that, but as far as I know, as far as my knowledge takes me, this is the first one that I know of that they've held. And yes, like he admitted prior, it still has flaws, but if you watched the watch party of Narushio, if you watched the live event of Kuro, like everything that's been going on there, you can feel the players really enjoying. I like to watch Rexland's content, and when I was there, when he was there in Kuro Fest, he solo dungeon a hologram, and the people were just like head over heels of how about how he just took it on, right? And just as a watcher, even from my own seat here from home, it felt it felt really enlivening, if that's even a word, right? So I do hope there are more Kuro Fests. I hope that one day I will be able to attend that, even though I probably don't know 90% of what people are speaking there because of the language barrier. But nonetheless, I do. It's a dream of mine. It's still a dream of mine, and probably a dream of many other players as well, who support the game, who support the company. So, is your confidence in offline investment related to the state of your products? Solon says yes. PGR just launched its PC version and completed a Devil May Cry 5 collaboration, which, by the way, I really regret not jumping on. But given the time and the resources that limit me, I have no other choice. But I have to admire Kuro Games for recreating Dante, Virgil, and all of the elements of the DMC characters. Kuro Games in general did a good job with it. They did not omit anything other than the block and some blades of Virgil around his Mirage blades that spin around him, and maybe some elements, but for the most part, like 97, 95%, the source material was kept, and the recreation or the porting of Dante and Virgil into the game of PGR was perfectly done. And on the Unity engine as well, which is, it just goes to show that it does not matter what engine you use. It just, what matters is how you use it and how you break the boundaries of that engine, right? I was sold with that. If I had the resources, I would have jumped on that. Anyway, for its sixth anniversary, we will implement global same version sync. That's great. This will open up some fresh possibilities for release strategy and game content, and our team already has lots of new ideas. WuWa, as a young product entering its second year, is in a rapid growth phase. We all know that. We don't need the numbers for that, although the numbers would prove something factual. But as you can see, it's been growing as a household name. Even prior to this, the theme song of Lupa has been adopted by some Valorant players and tournaments as sort of like their theme song as well. So it's starting to branch out, right? So it's entering its second year. It's in a rapid growth phase. We've already mapped out 4 to 5 years of long-term plans for it. Wow, that actually makes me happy. And that makes players as well, I believe, listening right now, happy as well that the investment that they're making, both emotionally and financially, is going to have a long-term payout, right? Because we've invested ourselves in characters, we've invested monetarily into the purchase of some of the characters that we both simp for and we like. And it's just nice to see that they have this roadmap plan and have plans to sustain the game. That's good. But this still, they should be careful because they gotta stay on track. They cannot at all costs be derailed, right? Otherwise, that 4 to 5 year plan is in trouble. No matter how much you plan, you know, I believe it's Murphy's law. Like anything that can go wrong will go wrong, right? As long as we keep generating ideas and making them real, we're bound to create moments that strike players and surpass their expectations. Very true. And they've done that so many times already. Every new patch that Wuthering Waves, Kuro Games puts out for Wuthering Waves has always broken an expectation or two on the part of the player base. So Grape says, why did you dare to greenlight a 3D action project like PGR back then? Because, right, they came from Twin Tail Battlegrounds, for those who do not know. It's a 2D bullet hell bullet hell genre game. And just search the history of that. A lot of people like Glaive Keo have that, and very informative CC as well. Solon Lee says, back during Twin Tail Battleground, we lacked long-term ops experience and ecosystem maintenance skills, as with any budding company. Plus, our 3D skills and preferred gameplay weren't compatible with the Cocos engine, which was the engine that they used for the Twin Tail Battlegrounds. This, combined with the tech, talent, and the ops experience from Twin Tails, pushed us to try 3D, leading to PGR's green light. Initially, we didn't aim for an action game. 3D alone was already a huge leap. Our concept was a 3D immersive game using innovative match 3 mechanics. I believe that's the 3-point system for the characters swapping in and out, right? Or character actions, but testing showed that without letting players directly control the actions, immersion did not feel complete. So we added normal attacks, dodges, step by step. PGR became more action, quote unquote action, until we finally decided internally to commit to it fully. That's when the goal no longer felt far away. Very, very, very true. If you notice action games like Dark Souls, Elden Ring, Devil May Cry 5, 4 and 5 actually, and Monster Hunter even, for the Capcom IPs that are really selling well. which I believe, and Square Enix as well. Final Fantasy, let's see, Near Automata, those games, I believe that he took inspiration from those games. And this part here where you need direct input, let me ask you a question, right? It does it feel good to like, I know there are turn-based games out there, but does it feel good to just sometimes just watch it and not have any input on it? Of course, it's, for some players, it's their cup of tea, but for players who crave the dopamine rush and the adrenaline rush, it's not so much. Direct input into the character's action creates a certain sense of satisfaction whenever you land certain combos on the enemy, right? It's kind of like Monster Hunter, right? When you there's a huge monster in front of you, you directly input a slash into the monster, you see the blood gush out, you see the monster stagger. It's like, I got it. It's that kind of moment, right? It's the moment. And PGR did that. So they did that for PGR rather. It became more action until we finally, yeah. So Grape says PGR is still lively in its 6th year. What is its core strength? Solon Lee then proceeds to reply, we wanted to run for 10 plus years. Wow. For me, that's very consoling because for one, I used to play PGR back in I think 2018, in between 2018 through 2020, 2021, something like that. And I personally waited for 2 years for Vera's banner, the Garnet banner, to rerun, I think. So yeah, I've invested. That was the first major investment into a gacha game I ever did for Vera because I just like the character, and I've left that behind for a while now. But I still find it inside that I want to come back, and to hear that they wanted to run for 10 plus years just makes me want to do that. I know it's not exactly as on the scale of WuWa, but still, it's a pretty nice game. Its competitive edges are, first of all, its post-apocalyptic sci-fi theme, which shares the same theme as Nier, since it drew inspiration from that game. Gives wide, long-term narrative room for stories about despair and hope, unique character or monster design, etc. Core gameplay, match 3 plus combat kept it unique for years, though we are adding new control modes. Very evident in the new Devil May Cry collaboration, where two complex characters such as Dante and Virgil have their own control scheme, right? IP ecosystem leveraging 6 years of accumulated content to spark player emotion. The story of PGR is not your run of the mill kind of story. It is a really riveting story for those who like to kind of read a book that pops out. The if you read a book, it's kind of like reading a book, but on a whole different level, right? So, great. How does Homecoming Voyage, the FOS anthem, ignite emotions? Solely, first, the road must be long enough. By the time we made it, players and the game shared a long journey. The song fits the game's graduation story arc while reflecting real life player experiences. Okay. May every child returning to Earth be safe. It blends despair with hope, inspiring players not just to recall game scenes but also draw energy from their own lives, for their own lives. This reflects Kuro's philosophy. Beyond fun gameplay and great stories, we want to give players strength, guidance, and positive values. You don't hear that every day from a game company. This is one of those unique moments where a game company just outright has a philosophy like that. It's like a vision, mission type of thing, right? And you don't see that in a lot of game companies nowadays. Nowadays, and it's sad to say, especially for the Western gaming market, it's more like we'd like to give players an experience based on the amount of monetary compensation that they could shell out, or we'd like to give the players a nice experience at the cost of bleeding them dry. It's not outright blatantly said, but it is implied, right? By pelting the players with microtransactions and all that stuff. We've seen that before in the start of Battlefront 2. Up to present, it's been evolving it's kind of like it's been evolving in a way where it's robbing you blind. It's robbing you blind, robbing us blind. Both PGR and WuWa have some heavy, even tragic stories. Solon Lee says we want depth. Character struggles must make sense so that the payoff is quote unquote sexy. This is so cute when he says that. And moving. Players of these genres want coherent worlds, even if the journey is sad. Watering it down into formulaic happy endings risks making the IP unappealing. I agree with this in that uh, because PGR, if anybody has played PGR, we know that the story does not shy away from pain and despair. It actually encourages the player to delve into that pain and despair and resonate to it on a personal level, especially with the different characters there, the different frames, right? I remember this one time I saw that footage of Selena. She was in a church setting, and she was handing flowers. I think it was to the commandant. I'm not sure if it was the commandant, but then he just straight up pulls out a gun to her face, and at first she has this expression of shock, but then she smiles, and you kind of wonder why that is, but then there's a backstory to that. So the depth of that, right, is what Kuro Games plans to keep, and this kind of pretty much confirms their direction with regards to the story of Wuthering Waves and probably every single IP that they put out from here onward. It makes it unappealing if it's a cliche story, like kind of like what happens to Frolova right now. People were expecting Kuro to like do the typical thing, she redeems herself, blah blah blah. Rover saves her, she becomes one of his waifus. But that was not the case. Rover did not, in whatever capacity he had, reach out his hand to her when she fell, ultimately presuming that he killed her, right? And and Frolova did not shy away as well from expressing her disdain toward the main character, in that he failed her when she needed him most. So let that sink in. And that, I believe that's what the direction of the story of WuWa. It's a good thing, though, right? Life is full of cliches, and I think life is full of tragedy, and I think this type of storytelling enables the player, not for the sake of being more depressed, but enables the player to draw strength from or inspiration how to deal with that tragedy. So I dig it. I dig it. So why switch to UE for WuWa? After PGR's challenges, we still craved breakthroughs. Kuro Games. To compete in the market, we needed barriers, early entry into cutting edge genres. Also, the talent competition was fierce. To attract top talent in Guangzhou, we had to offer, again, with the sexy projects and tech. Yeah, okay, so appealing to the talents there. That's pretty fair. Looking back, choosing 3D open world and Unreal Engine was the right, if not hard, path. In a gaming company is usually what they want to do is they build on top of the engine that they have already built. There have been instances where, like Monster Hunter Wilds and Monster Hunter World, where they decided to shift to a new engine, but it was not well received because of the graphical limitations that it put on certain hardware, whereby it only allowed those players who were of the current generation GPUs, owners of the current generation GPUs, to enjoy the game, and the previous generations, such as myself, who hold two generation GPUs behind, and those with the 4090s or 4080s could not keep up. There are those instances, but those are isolated incidents. But in this case, they decided to switch from Unity Engine to Unreal Engine so that they could purposely break boundaries. They could create a different environment, one that is not limited by four corners that the engine has. No? Yeah, so I'm glad that they took this route. Although, and I'm even happier that they did not jump ship, because at the time that they've been making WuWa, UE5 was about to release, and a lot of games, including you know, the former that I've mentioned, Monster Hunter Wilds, I think they used the, oh no, They used that was the new Resident Evil engine, I believe. But many games have been jumping to Unreal Engine 5, and they're sticking to UE4, and they're mastering it, and that's good, right? Okay, so WuWa's production cycle seemed long. Yes, character production far exceeded our initial forecasts. We had to choose either stick to the old cycle or aim for market surpassing quality. We chose the latter, investing more people and time, because the more you invest in people and time, you can still achieve the former, right? And this is the thing. When you look at this statement, so far as we've come to this point, we look at his statements, there is no pretense to it. It's just no holds barred, just the way it is, plain and simple, right? As Dante was saying, I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it, right? So he's not sugarcoating anything. He's just saying it plain and simple. There are no excuses. Yes. So I, for one, this statement here, I would prefer as a player that it would take time for the developers to create a character, an experience, an environment that would later on be worth my weight, rather than pump out content on a daily, if not frequent basis, which is subpar, if not mediocre. I'd rather not. And so far, this is what has gotten me hooked to Wuthering Waves to a point that I've clocked almost 887 hours. Yeah, about 887 hours into the game, and I'm a fairly new player, right? And that's on top of taking care of things here in the house and whatever else. Yes, character production far exceeded. Okay, so we read that. After WuWa 2.0, things seem to accelerate. 2.0 had been in prep even before launch, but testing and feedback has led us to rework and optimize it for over 1.5 years. And this includes, I think, the flight system that they initially had planned released. They initially had it planned to be released when 1.x was released as well. But because of the deadline, I think that they had to meet, and the community was already expecting it to come out, it would be a risk not putting the game out. Even the fact that they put it out in an almost incomplete state where there were still bugs and things that needed to be fixed. It was a 50-50 gamble. But they decided that no, we're not going to wait a while, because what happens is if you wait for it for too long, what's going to happen is the community is going to get bored and they'll jump to the next best thing, right? And you're going to lose the momentum, the traction. So it's better that I think they took that route, whether they would receive criticism or not, and just fix things along the way, right? So we have what we have now because of the decisions that Solon Lee and Kuro Games ultimately did before. We have to be thankful for that. So the faster iteration since then reflects improved processes and an understanding of what attracts players. For long-term operation, you must deliver beyond expectations. Right. So in the forthcoming patches and the prior patches, we have seen that they have been delivering one expectation after the other, even to the point that there are some things that we as players did not expect, because I read comments in the JP community that there's this particular thing that even as simple as this, the latest addition that they had, and this is such a small thing, right? In Fantasy 7000 Gateways, usually when you collect the rewards, it's just one by one, and no big deal, right? But in the next patch, they're enabling it that when you click a button, all of those rewards will be collected at one time. So it's a small quality of life change that, in effect, has even wider, even the gamut of its influence, it has wider reverberations across the board, right? Yeah. So those things, although small, although minuscule, although trivial, those are the things that will later on create a player experience that is seamless. How do you maintain quality while running high output? The best method is shared values and like-minded people. This couldn't be more true. Process optimization alone can't replace team synergy. Now, well, that is well said. You don't you hear normally you would hear CEOs say that, but with a little bit of, you know, snide remarks or a double meaning behind that. But when you listen to this and you see the output that has been, well, out there, it's coherent, right? What he says is coherent with what is being experienced by the player in the game. There isn't like, oh, we value our team, but then after that, there is content that's put out and it's absolute garbage. So that type of thing is not coherent to what you're saying. But this, we see that Solon Lee says this, and the other thing also coincides with what he says, right? So, and he surrounds himself with those people who share his passion for the game, his passion for the love of the players, love of players for the game, and then some. So why focus on 3 minutes of high quality experience? It's intuitive. It's a no-brainer. Even if players only log in for 3 minutes a day, those minutes should feel great. And I believe he said in his own words before, they should be high quality. This builds lasting affection and sustains a game for 5, 10, even 20 years. And this is the mark, this is the hallmark of a good leader, by the way, right? A good leader and a good salesman. If players log in for 3 minutes a day, it should feel great, right? So if you're selling a product, if you're focusing on something and you want to deliver, it should be the best. It should be that the one who purchases that, the consumer who consumes that, has nothing but the best experience for the product, right? And yeah, this couldn't be truer from my point of view, from my perspective, because I jumped into WuWa with doubts about how whether I or not doubts toward Kuro Games or anything like that, but whether or not I would stay. I would decide to create this channel, right? But because Kuro Games managed to do this, then here I am. I'm gambling everything basically, right? So yeah. Anyway, let's move on. Will WuWa's quality direction include GTA-like elements? Solon Lee says yes, though perhaps not as people imagine. Its world will expand into more sci-fi, modern, and urban themes. Timing is the question. Yeah. So this part here is really interesting because when you think of it this way, right now we started with Jinzhou, we had the Black Shores. We went from traditional, neo-traditional to like modern, right? And then we went back to sort of like, I wouldn't say the Stone Age, but neo-traditional again in Septimon and Raguna, and then neo-traditional in Renacita as well, in Septimon. Sorry. They can just pick and choose. They can pick and choose which theme they want to put into the current patch, and it allows for the game to be flexible. It enables them to be more flexible with the types of decisions that they will make for the game in the near future, right? And that's a good thing because the more flexible you are, the more themes, the more ideas you can introduce, fresh ideas you can introduce. You're not confined by, like, let's say, and this is not a bad thing, by the way, but for games that are not live service, like you just pay for the game and outright get it and then you play it, games like, let's say, Elden Ring, right? You're confined as a developer, a From Software developer, you're confined with the game's theme. You just have to stick to that, which is like basically the overarching underlying theme of Elden Ring, which is big boss fights, um, medieval weapons, and all that jazz. So yeah, seeing this gives gives us as a player hope to see fresh things in the near future. So from PGR, Grape says from PGR to WuWa, why always take the hard road? Solon Lee says every test made them feel like entirely new games, not by intent, but because continual feedback and iteration pulled us ever closer to our goals. Positive feedback from improvement fuels our logic to do it well. Face the challenges head on. Well said. Again, there's nothing to say but well said because it really is that, plain and simple. They do not shy away from challenges, and I think that's something good nowadays that we should see in a video game company, and a free game at that, a game as a service type of thing, right? It's they've set the bar for free games and games as a service, and I believe that other companies as well could take a page from their playbook, could learn a thing or two about what they're doing, how they do it, right? And as long as they don't get consumed by corporate ambition, I mean, a little ambition is not a bad thing, but too much ambition, especially if it spirals into greed, that's that makes the difference between a good game company and a bad game company. And it shows. It shows in the output, right? It's just comforting to see that Kuro Games, the team back there being led by Solon Lee and whoever else are their heads, they actually they're actually pulling through. They accept challenges and they pull through. So great. Challenges also bring pressure. How do you keep morale? If challenges vanish, we become more anxious. Challenges bring growth both in player validation and in upgraded skills. That's more valuable than any management optimization. Our motto, coined by the staff, he says, by the way, is love players, love the team, love the game. Paired with, of course, fair rewards like company-wide bonuses during WuWa's milestones, this sustains competitiveness. It's kind of like how NVIDIA has stock options for their employees that keeps them working there, right? That's why, like as Asmongold said it, NVIDIA employees, most of them, if not all, are millionaires back there. And that's the same thing that I think he's learned here, Solon Lee. So W Solon Lee, W Kuro Games for doing this for your employees. You don't just see them as tools. You see them as not just outright objective investments, but kind of like how your father, you invest in your son's education, right? It's there's a similarity to that, right? So, and again, if you can see here that they're not strangers to challenges. They've already been there in Twin Tail Battlegrounds when they still had a small office that was like part of a convenience store, I think. I'm not sure. But yeah. So what's Kuro's team size now? And this is surprising because he says over 2,000. Most in live products, a small portion in new titles. And those new titles include what we're about to dive into next, where Grape says Nami status. So only he says too early to reveal. It's early to mid development, not yet ready for public release. We wanted to break our comfort zone. It's an action game so exciting that players scream, distinct from our past works. I'll be straight up. I think this is a competitive game. I think this is a PvP game. Yeah? Because what kind of game makes people scream? If not PvP, competitive, hyper competitive games, right? We've seen like there's this video on Rexled's channel. I think it was an anime fighting game, and it looked nice. And I think that they might head in that direction, but not so much a fighting game. There are still story elements to it, but this would be interesting to see, right? Now that you get to fight against real players, I normally wouldn't want to go back to a competitive atmosphere. I've been hooked on competitive games for the bulk of my childhood life, and it has been nothing but traumatizing for me and for those around me. Basically, it causes toxicity. But if it's Kuro Games, I'd really be interested. I'd like to see what they have in store. So I'd be willing to give this a chance. So after 11 years, how would you define Kuro's temperament? We don't like boxing ourselves in. Our culture is challenge is greatness. We want players to feel Kuro is a growing company, climbing mountains and witnessing better. Feels like the players get that, like how you kept your fest promise. Solon Lee says that's a mutual understanding, right? So that's it for the clincher. We have challenge is greatness. It's something that I think I myself and everyone else who is watching right now and everyone else in the world could learn a thing or two about. And Kuro, when they said here, when Solon Lee said we want to feel like we're a growing company and climbing mountains and witnessing better, I think he also has the players in mind on about this, right? And we feel that. We feel that with every new patch. We feel that with every new update. We feel that with the critiques and the reasonable, valid criticisms, objective criticisms that the community is allowed to make to better the game further, right? We feel that. And they're allowing that. And that's good. That's a good thing. Feedback is always a good thing. Right? So it's a mutual understanding. Right? Basically, that's it. And then we see here pictures of Kuro Fest. I think this is Bianca. Wow. I miss PGR already. There's Project Nami. Excited for that. Right? I think this is the revenue. I'm not sure if this is the revenue. And of course, we have Wuthering Waves. We have their history, a little bit of history here. Twin Tail Battlegrounds. We have Liv here from PGR, right? Oh wow, let's see Kuro Fest, and we've got everything else here, live performances and whatnot. And of course, we have the man, the myth, the meme, the goat himself, Solon Lee, together with his special group of harem, his little harem here. Just kidding, of course. We have Tosaka Rin, we have Saber Alter, we have Cardiff. Okay, wrong game. We have Lucio Pyroth, we have Bianca, we have Cardathia, and Jinsei. Sleeper build, by the way. Like this guy just looks like this, but behind that he's a Giga Chad, you know. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for dropping by and hear me yap about this interview. I personally just feel like I had to talk about this because even though we're relatively small right now, our channel is relatively small, I'd like to take it in a direction that would support the company Kuro Games as well as support players regarding certain issues or matters concerning the game and their investment into it. Yeah, I'd be more than happy to have analysis like that, to make analysis videos like that or like this one. And yeah, I guess that's pretty much it for me right now. I don't have anything to say. All of this is off script. I don't have scripts. I don't do scripts, and hopefully won't have to do in the near future. Again, thank you everyone for tuning in. Like, comment, subscribe if you like the content, and God bless you. Take care. Have a great day.